Hi, Eugene.
Hi, Sangeeta, how are you?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Hi, viewers. We are back again with an American academician and a soccer coach, Professor Eugene Ngezem. It's great pleasure to host Professor Eugene Ngezem for the 21st episode of the limited video series of literary and critical conversations. Professor Eugene Ngezem is a tenured full professor of English and full status graduate faculty who holds a PhD in English with distinction. Professor Ngezem's scholarship varies, but focuses primarily on modern and contemporary English literature. He sits on the editorial board of many journals and has published dozens of articles on British literature, world literature, American literature, and postcolonial literature. Professor Ngezem has published several dozens of scholarly articles in peer-reviewed journals in the US, Europe, Asia, and Africa. He has also presented several juried papers at international and national conferences in the US, Africa, and Asia. Professor Ngezem has led many organizations in the US and beyond, and is actively involved in diverse committees in his university. As a hobby, he plays soccer and coaches too. He has been certified by the US Soccer Association and coaches U19 boys soccer in the state of Georgia. Currently, he teaches undergraduate and graduate courses at Clayton State University, Georgia, USA. Welcome to the 21st episode of the limited series of literary and critical conversations, Professor Eugene.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Thank you.
Hey, let's commence the conversation now. Well, we know that you have been a university instructor for more than 25 years, and you have taught in several institutions too in the US. So now please tell us something about your childhood, your family background, and the strong influences on you.
Yeah, Dr. Sharma, before I start, I want to thank you for the opportunity to talk to you or to talk with you. Thank you. I really appreciate the outstanding work Setu Bilingual Journal is doing. It is such an outstanding journal, and it is worth reading. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Welcome.
With respect to my background, I was born to a polygamous family in Cameroon, Africa. You know, polygamy is common in some African countries. So I was born to a family of where my father had 6 wives.
Really?
Divorced one died. So I grew up with 4 mothers, my biological mother and 3 stepmothers. And my father had 27 children, 14 boys, 13 girls. Wow. Growing up in such a vast or big family has its own disadvantages and advantages. Disadvantage in the sense that there's the sibling rivalry, which is ongoing, but advantages in the sense that we know how to negotiate, we know how to reconcile, we know how to cope with people with different personalities, different perspectives. And that type of background has enabled me to be successful in dealing with all personalities wherever I work, because I've been groomed in a family with diverse personalities. So that is my background. And of course, it was a humble background because my parents did not have much. My parents were not educated. They were full-blown illiterates. So nobody ever assisted me with my homework because they could not do it. Even though they were thoughtful and intelligent, they could not help me with my academic work. But they were very helpful in terms of supporting me to attain my goals. So that childhood has catapulted me to where I currently serve as a full professor at Clayton State in the USA. Thank you.
That's fascinating.
Yes, thank you.
A very big family you belong to, so many siblings. You are fortunate.
Right.
Undoubtedly. As a teenager, you were nicknamed Professor Ngezem.
That's right.
Yeah, because you wrote Professor Ngezem on the cover of all your notebooks. So how do you feel today when your dream has come true and you have achieved all that you had always yearned for?
Dr. Sharma, you are right. As a teenager, I wrote on my notebooks, Professor Ngezem Eugene. And it was very prophetic. I just had these big dreams that I can be something bigger. And I was once told that the biggest teacher is a professor. And I said, one day I'll be a professor. And I feel very true today because such dreams have been realized. I feel proud that I am part of the category of a selected few with respect to academics. And it is a distinguished honor because I realized that only 3% of students who have graduated with a doctoral degree are professors. So it has been a wonderful blessing for me. And I feel excited because through hard work, through not giving up, through learning to ask when things are difficult for me, and I must also confess that through God's blessing, I've been able to attain the dream I had when I was still a teenager. Not just achieve it, but achieve it fully. For as a full professor, that is the highest you can attain in the academic setting. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. You have achieved what you wanted to. Congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Your areas of expertise include postcolonial literature, Victorian literature, modern British literature, and English language.
Right.
As mentioned in your bio. So
Yes.
do you think post-colonialism is a relevant field for further studies and investigation even today?
Yes. Post-colonial literature, which in very broad terms deals with the acute impact of colonialism on colonized societies, is still very relevant and is still prone to investigation or further studies as we speak. It is a discipline that keeps evolving because there's so much that we still have to learn about post-colonial studies. For example, issues of immigration, refugeeism, power, corruption, gender, and you can resistance, hybridity, dominance, and corruption are still very vital areas that needs further these are areas that need further investigation. So post-colonial studies or literature, you want to call it that way, is still very open for further investigation. Yes, the curtain is not yet down.
Great.
Thank you.
We all know that it was in the Victorian era that the novel became the leading literary genre in English. Tell us about the impact of Victorian novel on the current society. Is there society impacted?
Yeah, there's strong impact. The Victorian era, which started from 1830 to 1901 under Queen Victoria, is a very special period. And before I say anything about, let me just step back to say that If you look at the neoclassical period, during which their stepping stones were honor, order, and dignity. Everything had to be done in order, and everything must be done with honor, and there should be dignity. Those are the slogans of the neoclassical period. When the Romantic period came, they rebelled against that. They took after the French Revolution. Their slogans were liberty, equality, and fraternity.
Yeah.
But when the Victorian era stepped in, given that Queen Victoria herself was an embodiment of the values of her society, values of moral propriety, values of earnestness, values of hard work, and domestic fidelities. Such values took the whole society by storm. And writers upheld these values in their works. But at the same time, they were also criticizing the injustices, including exploitation, the role of the woman. The woman question was very prevalent during that period. Yeah, those values, especially when it comes to matters of the lower classes, questioning their place in society, are still very prevalent today. If you look at Victorian texts, look at, for instance, Charles Dickens' Hard Times. Just as the title intimates, Hard Times. You find the way the characters are struggled. See Stephen Blackpool, how he struggles, how he has to fight against all odds just to earn a living. And there's constant exploitation. Such are still very prevalent today because the younger generation in our contemporary world are still questioning the powers that be. They are still trying to find their footing in society. Matters of moral breakdown, the continual erosion of human value, the sense of collapse that has besieged our 21st century world are things that were being experienced during the Victorian period. So yes, Victorian values or issues raised by Victorian writers, whether we're talking about, as I mentioned, Charles Dickens, or we are talking about other writers, are still very prevalent in our society today, especially as people do not just want to sing accolades for those who are in power. They are also questioning the injustice and incompetence that almost always find themselves around leadership in the world today.
Great. Charles Dickens was the great master of Victorian times.
That you're right.
Yeah. Such masterpieces came out from him.
Yes, it's a great novel.
Individualism and experimentation are the hallmarks of modern British literature. James Joyce, Joseph Conrad, and T.S. Eliot are known the masters of the time. So what are the takeaways for the young audiences of British literature?
Yeah, the concept of individualism is very prevalent in modern British literature, where the individual wants to have his or her own views in the construct of society, where the individual is not just there to adhere to what has been prescribed by society. You look at writers such as John Osborne, Look Back in Anger. You look at many other writers of the period, of the modern period. You see the way the younger generation struggles, issues of employment, finding their voice in a society that has been confiscated by the leaders. The takeaway today for the modern audience are many. The challenges are still there. Unemployment is still there. Frustration is still there.
That's true.
Class polarity is still there. The few wielding so much power over the minority, the have and the have-not, those struggles are ongoing. So most of these writers in their works depict a photographic image in which even posterity seem to find a comfortable space in such areas. See people like Harold Pinter, The Homecoming, The Caretaker, all these writers, they grapple with themes that were very prevalent in the 20th century. But at the same time, in the 21st century, we are still facing challenges of that nature. You go to The Homecoming, look at the challenges the characters experience, look at the position of the woman, look at the total erosion of moral propriety. So some of them, and the takeaways, yes, continue to be, the writers are like social critics. The younger generation see writers as social critics. It is not like in the Victorian period where you must uphold, everything must be in order, honor, and dignity. Now they say, no, wait a second. We don't need to go to the neoclassical period. We don't need to be the Victorian, we don't need to copy the Victorian period. We need to speak the truth, even to power. And that is the reason you find many younger men and women today asking tough questions. They want their leaders to respond to very hard questions, tough questions. What is my position? What is my place? You don't own society. I'm part of this society and I have a voice. Thank you.
That's true. Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, now we come to language. English language is the second or third most popular mother tongue in the world, with an estimated 350 to 400 million native speakers. Now, can you discuss the power politics of English as a center of hegemony, especially for the non-native speakers of the world?
Exactly. English has such power. English language has such power over the world. And that English has such real power to the extent that people are measured in terms of their ability to speak it correctly, to speak it flawlessly. It is interesting because only 20% of the world speaks English. Yet, English is so dominant. About 98% of scientific publications are written in English. 98%. And the UN, which is the biggest organization in the world, has English as its primary language.
Yes.
Similarly, Commonwealth, the second largest in the world, uses English as its sole language of business, of communication. For some reason, English language is the de facto international language for aviation and navigation.
Yes.
And I take offense at the notion that speaking differently as I do, or coming from a different culture in which English was not my primary language, suggests that I'm not very good in grammar. And I also take offense at the fact that one must speak English fluently, flawlessly, before he or she will be considered to be an upright member of a scholarly community. English, without doubt, has strong influence. It has power. And the dominant society like the European countries, especially Britain and America, they have made sure that their books are all over the world. In India, in Africa, in Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, wherever, you find that people are glued to English language. And they are glued to English language because it seems to be a language of survival now. It's to the extent that even people who want to codify their native languages use the formula of English language to attain their own indigenous dialects or mother tongues, as I can call them. So English wields so much power. And it's going to take some time Because, for instance, I went to Cameroon, Africa, and I realized that many French-speaking parents are sending their children only to English schools.
Yes.
And the goal is that want them to attain certain dreams. Then they are not very sure that if they continue to pursue the French language, they'll have the type of overtures that English language will give them. Yes, it has been it's been very domineering. There's that hegemony of the language. So its power is real, it is palpable, and it is everywhere evident.
Yeah, because of this big population speaking English language, it has become important for the authors as well to ensure that their works are translated into English language.
Right, that's
And we
correct.
know Booker Prize had gone to Daisy Rockwell's translated work, Tomb of Stone. The original author was Geetanjali Shri. So that was possible only because the book got translated into English.
That's correct.
So for wider audience, for better reach, you have to see that. So English is that important a language today.
It's very important. I sit here speaking English
Yes.
because of the colonial impacts. This English to me is a foreign language, but for some reason, I've used it to the extent that whenever I'm talking and I'm using English, I'm fluent. I'm more effective in relaying what I want to say than even more effective than my own mother tongue. So it has power and it has influence. It has dominated societies.
Yeah.
And it's a tool. It was a tool used by the colonial masters. And they planted it where it is ingrained, it is deep, and it's bearing fruits everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. 100% true.
Thank you.
So, what are the current preoccupations of the so-called English studies prescribed in the American university system?
It's interesting you say the so-called. So-called. It has broadened and deepened to the extent that using the word so-called is correct. Currently, the American university system continues to focus on academic writing, creative writing, literary theory, British and American literature, and has even expanded to the area of film studies. And you have these multidisciplinary topics such as history courses, so social sciences, and studies in foreign languages. All these things have morphed into this term pregnant with meaning, namely English studies. So these are the preoccupations in the American system. So you find that the interdisciplinary studies report the English department is partnering with the film department. So it has broadened and deepened so much, as I said earlier.
Yeah, so please let us know about how does the American academic scene function, especially in terms of diversity and accommodation of different ethnicities?
Right. I think the American university system does well in terms of that. It's not good enough, but I can appreciate the fact that there are positive strides. For instance, I used to teach at Murray State University in Kentucky, and I was the only Black full-time faculty member in my college at the time, I think. And when I was hired, somebody said, "Oh, we need to color this place a bit." So some of them were excited of the fact that I came in as a Black person. And many institutions around this nation, the US, are doing everything to bring diversity of staff, diversity of faculty, and diversity of students. It is true that in my department, Blacks are still in the minority, but then there are positive strides in accommodating this. It is not just about Black and white, even Asians themselves.
Yeah.
Asians too.
It was in the news that they have to endure the outsider category, which can be, of course, psychologically unnerving and emotionally too quite overwhelming. So it was there in the news.
Yeah, but one thing that's very good too is that many institutions that I know, they are very strict. It doesn't matter your race or where you come from, the color of skin or whatever, your sexual orientation, it doesn't matter. Promotion is contingent upon academic achievements. It is not like in some third world countries where if you have many godfathers and godmothers, you can be given, maybe you can be promoted just because of your affiliation with others. In the American system, it's very rigorous. For instance, you have for you to move from lecturer to senior lecturer, from senior lecturer to assistant professor, from assistant professor to associate professor, or from associate professor to full professor, you must have fulfilled the standing requirements because it is not determined by just a few people. For example, in my university, before I became a full professor, 7 agencies need to evaluate my file independently without caring what others have done. And they all wrote their independent report before I became a full professor. So diversity is still lacking in many institutions, but at least in terms of fairness, in terms of hard work paying off, one, irrespective of your background, your gender, if you work hard, you have that right. Because a faculty member has the right even to sue the university if you believe that you've acquired the desired things that need to be done and you've not been promoted or compensated. You have that right to take action. So the system in place is very good, although it is still work in progress.
Wonderful. That's quite heartening. Yeah. You have mentioned in your bio that you love soccer and you have also served as a soccer coach at Henry County.
Yes.
So is government support to this sport enough in the present times, or it needs more to be done?
It needs more. It needs more because I've been coaching soccer for quite some time here in the US. I'm a certified coach by the US Soccer Association. I coach U19 boys for Henry County. I was even named the coach of the month at one point. What a coach of the year, not what a coach of the year, coach of, I think it was coach of the month, your coach of the month. At one point, because of my efforts in training the younger generation. And the government needs to support because not everybody can afford to pay to play soccer. It is not just free. They pay. I'm not paid. Mine is just for assistance. Mine is not for pay. I do that as part of community service. But there are many who cannot play soccer because they don't have the financial requirements. The jerseys, the uniforms are costly. So if the government can subsidize the various counties that have these programs, so to enable many kids to play, because soccer brings social cohesion. It enables the youth to work on their health. The more you run, the more you exercise, the more you may live longer. Your health will improve.
Yeah, that's good.
You develop social skills. Such will help, especially when children are not just wandering around. When children are not wandering, so to say, the likelihood of committing crimes will be less, of falling asunder will be less. So soccer takes the attention from some of the delinquencies that may befall them. So it has very big significance, and subsidizing such will be good.
Great. So what's the reason of this fascination with soccer?
Thank you. I was born in Cameroon, and soccer in Cameroon is like a religion. Enemies greet and hug each other each time Cameroon wins a game. I grew up with that desire. Even from childhood, we were playing soccer in rough surfaces. So I just had that desire to play soccer. But I saw that besides just playing, Besides having fun, I should also help others. That's why I volunteered and took training to be a soccer coach. And such has been very helpful, even in my institution, even in my classes.
Yeah, so what lessons have you learned from this game, especially as an English professor? And do you, implement them in your teaching as well? Incorporate, yeah.
Absolutely, I do. I do that. Because soccer requires one to be very creative in thinking. You need to be very careful. You need to know who you are placing where and why. You need to know that not every child who comes to play soccer knows how to play soccer. Similarly, as a university professor, you need to know that your students are there to learn. You must be patient with them. You must take enough time to train them in such a way that they can be very strong students. They can be top-tier students.
Yeah, team spirit and, how to tackle defeat and victory.
Right.
Yeah, sports spirit.
Yeah, you're very right. And at times, when you are drawing a line up in the soccer field, you know which player to place at a particular spot. Similar in the classroom setting, you know, especially during group presentation or group discussions, you know your students, you know who should be in which group and for what reason. You don't want to take all your hardworking students and put them together. You split them so that others can learn from them, and they too can learn from others. It's the same thing. And soccer, victory in soccer is team spirit. I tell my students, classroom is like a family where we support each other, where we respect each other. Even if a student says something that's incorrect, you don't laugh, don't make fun of that student, because the student is there to learn. Similarly, if a player makes a very lousy pass in the field or misses scoring a goal that was almost obvious, give that player a chance, because everybody is prone to mistakes. Thank you.
Wonderful, yeah. So now we are inching towards the end of the conversation.
Yes.
I would like you to give some message to the literary audience.
Well, I can say that literature is a work of art expressed carefully through language. It is the product of imagination and creation. It can be written can be in written or oral forms. But now we are talking mostly about written literature. So I want the literary community to know that it is important to learn how not just to consume, but to create, to publish. That is why you have outstanding journals like Setu, who enable scholars from around the globe to publish their top-tier work. So I urge the literary audience to be creative, not just to be active consumers, but also to be active producers, and to always not be too dependent on the product of literary critics. A literary critic is just somebody who has an opinion. It's just somebody who has an opinion on a subject. So always question everything you read, not just depend on them totally. Always make sure you have your own views. And that's where reader response criticism comes in. What are your own thoughts? Do not depend so much on what this critic said. What are your own thoughts? So such is a message that I want to send to literary audience. Be creative. Don't be just active consumers. Read, but at the end of the day, what have you produced? To what extent have you contributed to the existing body of knowledge in your field?
Yes, that's very important what you said, that you do not depend on the opinion of one literary critic. So read some more.
Right.
And then you develop your own critique about the text, and that should be final instead of just depending on what you find elsewhere.
Agreed.
So that's very inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome message. That was a wonderful exchange of ideas It was pleasure talking to you, Professor Eugene. Yours has been a real remarkable journey. A big thanks to you for taking time out despite a tight schedule. Thanks again, Professor Ngezem. Thanks, viewers. In the next episode, we will present to you yet another distinguished guest. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, Eugene.
Bye-bye, Dr. Sharma.